This time on PedalBox, I'm hopefully tackling the garage problem for the final time, at least for a few more years. I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff in here, tidy it up, find new homes and places for things to live, and excise this so that it eventually turns into a much better workspace. We've got to get a lot of stuff in and out of here in order to finish the kit car. We've got to be able to fit the engine in here in this space, which already has a Golf engine in it that I'm hoping to start work on soon once I've got some more space, and also go through the workbench and sort out all of this. So stick around, this is going to be a workshop infrastructure video on PedalBox. So suffice to say that stuff has got a little bit out of hand, and one of the biggest problems is this corner where the mill is, that we really only use as a drill press because using it as a mill is almost impossible. There's not enough space either side. The area in front of it ends up getting used as a dumping ground for all sorts of things, and the cupboard in the corner really doesn't open particularly well. Even if I move all of the stuff out of the way, it's just a dark void inside because the lights are all at that end of the room. So we need to sort this out, and my plan is just to get rid of this cupboard because I don't need access to the stuff that's in here regularly. I now have tool chests that have a lot more stuff in that I actually need access to on a daily basis, or I say a daily, every time I'm in the room, and a lot of this stuff can be moved somewhere else. So this whole cupboard is going to go away. The mill is going to move, the welding bench is going to move around some so that we can actually make a bit of better use of that. Hopefully make some space down this end so that we can get the engine out of the kit car again once the weather sorts itself out, and move that in here so that we can finish off tidying the engine bay, doing the last bits we need for the IVA, and also make better use of the workbench area, because this void down here and underneath that toolbox is just a black hole of Calcutta, the kind of thing that everything just falls into and disappears. I found a big box of T-handle ball-end Allen keys in there the other day, which would have been really useful to have a few weeks ago, but didn't know that I had them. Completely forgot. They were just kicked into the back of the void. You can't see anything, and that is no good whatsoever. Probably going to ignore this shelf up here for a little while yet, though. That's not an emergent problem. This massive issue here, rebuilding this whole cabinet, well, I say cabinet, the whole workspace under here is what the goal is, and moving that so that we can make better use of this space. So let's get on trying to get that cabinet out, because that's the big one we need to do. Progress. The cupboard is now completely empty, and I found all sorts of things that I'd forgotten that I had, including a couple of saw blades, this wet bench grinder, a number of woodworking tools. There's a biscuit jointer down there, all sorts of fittings for it. Yeah, just odds and ends everywhere. An entire hole cutting set. Didn't know I had that. Didn't have much use for it, but forgot that I had it either way. Yeah, just piles and piles of stuff. I'd forgotten I'd bought a multifunction drill sharpener. Unfortunately, I have a big pile of drill bits that need to be sharpened. I know they're not great, but for most of what I do, they'll probably be okay enough. So yeah, that's part of the problem dealt with, because the cupboard is now empty. The problem ahead of me is this. This is all my metal stock, and there is now no more room in here to unpack this cupboard into, so these are going to have to go outside where it's a bit wet. So I'm not thrilled about that, but I'm also going to have to unpick all of this stack, which is going to be a nightmare. So yeah, that's going to be miserable, but that's the next one on the list, and then this can go out. And I've only been going about 20-30 minutes so far, so it's not actually too bad. And that's all done. Fun fact, this is actually made from a framework we made of the 20 valve turbo to start framing up in the back of the kit car in like episode 3, I think it was. And we used it, it was useful, not as much use as I thought it might have been, but it was much more useful when we cut it apart and turned it into a storage rack on the top of this cupboard. So that's pretty much done with now, although I might use it again in the shed where this cupboard's going, but it doesn't need to be in here anymore, which is great. So now the cupboard is ready to come out and we can start moving that across into the other shed. Now, as I say, it's still a bit wet outside, so I'm not going to film any of that other than possibly struggling to get it out through this little gap down here. But we'll see how that goes and we'll come back in a minute. Well, this looks so much better with the cupboard out. There's so much more space. I mean, that's kind of to be expected when you move a 6-foot tall cupboard out of a corner of a room. Unfortunately, everything that was in it is now exploded over the rest of the building. So that's the problem. We need to go through all of this, and I'm going to make use of some of this space to start sorting things into at least similar piles. But I have one little trick up my sleeve, because down this end, there is another tool cart, and that is all drawers all the way down, and the main thing I want to put in that is the boxes, like the kits. So I actually can't reach any of them because they're all underneath that pile at the door, but like the brake winder kits, the spring compressors, all of those things are in boxes and they're all piled up in the cupboard and they were hard to get to. Now they can be in that trolley. All together, I can label the trolley, everything's easier to get to, and then the trolley is going to live hopefully underneath this bench on this side. So there is a lot of work to do to try and make this room functional once again. So I'm going to get on with that and start sorting through all of this stuff, get the door open once I can reach it again, and then we can get a little bit more space to start moving things around. So this is my pile of toolboxes. This is all sets of stuff. So this is spring compressor, set of screwdrivers. These are those T-handle Allen keys that I found. All sorts of stuff. And instead of being tucked away under here or in the cupboard back over there, they're now going to live in this tool chest. And then this is either going to be able to move around or more likely live underneath the bench somewhere along here. There's a couple of other bits, I think, down there. There's definitely a tap and die set or two in this drawer. Don't worry about this subframe, we'll come to that in another episode. But yeah, so the tap and die set might stay in there, but the extra Imperial one that I very rarely use, that will probably come out and go into one of these drawers. Might just go in the top because it's nice and thin. Either way, this is probably going to move. I'd like this to live in that spot, this to live in that spot, and these drawers, which are electronics and fasteners, so that's the riv nuts, the pop rivets, crush washers, all sorts of stuff like that. I think they're going to move because this is the problem with the space underneath here. It's just a dumping ground for stuff. These are bolts, these are spare bolt boxes. This is all brake bolts and fasteners and basically hydraulic stuff. There's parts of Golf under here, like that's the oil filter housing, all sorts of stuff like that. So that's all going to move out. And I hope doing that is going to keep that corner of the workshop free so we have more space for the mill, and all of these are going to be much, much more accessible, and the whole under bench space here is going to be made much, much more useful because there's a lot of tools in here I just can't use for anything. There's a bandsaw that lives underneath the welding bench, which would be great for when we're doing sheet material, and it's not massive, but it would be a lot easier than using an angle grinder for certain cuts. It would be a lot easier than using the jigsaw for things, stuff like that. It would be nice to have it accessible that I could pull it out, put it on a bench, use it, and put it away again. But I just don't. And there's a whole corner over here that has spare parts in and tools that also needs to be sorted, but this is the priority first. Well, it might not look like that much actually got done. Obviously the cart is over there with all of those boxes in it, so there is now actual usable space down here, which we can make use of to do some more work on the car, because Chris will be over at some point and we'll be doing some stuff on that. Most of the work that's happened is actually in the shed, and the shed is this dark, so I haven't bothered filming anything in there, and it's now dark outside, it's raining harder, all of the metal is still strewn across the patio out there, and yeah, that's unfortunate. So it's going to get a tarp thrown over it, and that's going to become tomorrow's problem. I genuinely thought this might be a 1 to 2 day project. Certainly one was, you know, really going at it all the way through, but no. 2 days, probably likely, but apparently not. And there is still a lot to do, but as much as it might not look it, if I clear this bench, this is a functional room again to actually do some work, so yeah. So it's the following week. We got a load of stuff done at the weekend, which was really good news, despite all of the chaos in here. And I spent a bit of time working out what I want to put in what corners of the garage, with a little bit more thought as to how we're actually using the space. Obviously the mill is still moving across once I've moved all of the woodworking stuff, but this bench is what's been occupying my mind. And I've got a few thoughts, which I'm going to take you through now, for how I think I'm going to try and reorganize this and rebuild a bunch of this bench. So at the moment I've got these 2 drawers which I salvaged from a bedroom unit, which are these 2 up here, and then there is a space underneath which is currently kind of a no man's land. It just has nothing useful in there anymore. It used to have useful things, but it doesn't work anymore, and the same goes for this. It's got a bunch of parts storage, there's some golf stuff over this side, nuts and bolts here, and then this is our big drawer of many other tools, some of which are mislabeled. And then the compressor lives over here. So the new plan is to put the 2 drawers, one above each other, like this, although slightly better. The bench will still be basically the same shape as it is now, but this leg is going to move across slightly this way. That way our big box of drawers can fit in this side. And then in this one, we can put something else. Now I'm going to have to move this leg to this side in order to have a mount for these 2 drawers to go on, and for the shelf that goes underneath here and here. So that will all go across. We're not going to have this shelf anymore. This one's going to go away. And in here, we're going to have the big trolley. And I think it's going to be the 4-drawer unit with the cupboard underneath on wheels. And the plan is this will be able to wheel out this way if we just move the compressor out of the way. And I think this will be a lot more useful. Now it might look like I've actually lifted this shelf, I've lowered this shelf down, but in actual fact it's probably going to get lifted up on this section anyway, so that in here we can put axle stands. Wow, that doesn't look like I wrote axle stands at all. But yeah, axle stands are going to live in here. And the old ones that we had, which I haven't actually, oh no, I've got a couple in here. These ones, even standing on top of some stuff, you can see these ones fit in perfectly. But I've got 4 new ones, and I'm going to have to go and find them because I don't have them. Please hold. So these are my new axle stands, and they go way taller than the other ones do. Which is really good news, because I'm going to need that extra height for the GTO. Now it's not so much because the GTO needs to be that high off the ground, it's just the job that I have to do on it. I need to get down, lie on my back underneath and redo the brake lines from the firewall all the way back. While I'm there, I'm going to do the fuel lines, I'm going to inspect the underneath, probably undercoat it, do all of those things. And being only this high off the ground on the old stands, these are equal to the new ones as they are, and by the time you get me lying on my back on the dolly, there's almost no space. Whereas this gives me an extra foot of space in front of me that I can work with. So I'm going to have to get a jack that will actually lift the car up safely to this height to do it, but that's going to be significantly easier to deal with rather than being on these low ones, so that's a definite win. Unfortunately, they no longer fit underneath my shelf. So I've moved the stuff off the floor, and you can see it is so close to fitting. Even if it weren't for this little bit of sag in the shelf, that wouldn't quite fit underneath. Certainly not easily be able to remove it. And I could theoretically just take that out, and then the whole thing does fit underneath. But then what do I do with these just floating around? It's much easier, kind of, to take the shelf out, move this drawer onto this side, and have 2 drawers, and then these fit underneath. And it compartmentalizes this whole area to just axle stands, which is going to be really, really useful to just corral them all together. And it also gives me an excuse to get rid of all of the rubbish that's underneath here. Now behind these drawers is a little cubby, and that's where I keep the sheet metal bender because there's nowhere else really useful to put it. And if I put the two drawers next to one another, I'm going to have another bit of dead space down here again. But it's not going to be full depth across, so the metal bender might not fit. But I think I'm going to be okay because these drawer units, these red ones, also aren't the full depth of this unit. They don't go all the way up to the wall, they don't even go all the way back to the frame at the rear. There is space behind them. So I'm hopeful that I can actually open up this space down here, make a second shelf that I can put some useful stuff in, which will probably be the roof rails for my A6. So they're easier to get to, and they're not going to get parts lost like they frequently do up in the roof. And the roof is the next place I'm going to tell you about. So the roof space should be fairly easy to deal with. It's just this door up here and a little shelf extension, and it's got a lot of junk up there that has just been tossed and thrown up there, and really it's not that easy to get to. There's a space in the corner that's almost impossible to access, and I have got some woodworking tools that I very rarely use, which would be perfect to live right in the back corner that I just don't need access to that often, including a router table that's probably almost older than me. So that's all down here in the back. There are a few other woodworking tools that I do use more regularly: jigsaw, circular saw, obviously power drills. There's a bunch of those underneath the shelf next to the mill. So that's all going to go up there as well, but much more accessible with the ladders right at the front. So that'll simplify that. But the main thing I want to get done is clearing out everything under here, moving these drawers around, and start making this space work better. That means moving this leg, redoing all of this. So that's going to be a good afternoon's work. So some good news, all the drawers are out, I've got the bottom shelf out. This back brace was actually completely pulled out at this end and giving no support whatsoever. In this section, I also found I have yet another trolley jack, which is really useful. I hadn't even remembered that I had that. Now I'm questioning where the handle is that goes with it. So that's a benefit, and I'm trying to work out what's going to be the easiest way to build the new drawer supports over this way, whether to cut it out of a new piece, a support that goes down here, or whether or not to modify this and cut a notch in it and do various, probably slightly janky things. So I was going to cut right down this line where you can see just about in the dust where the two drawers were. Obviously we only need the one on this side, but I wanted to keep the keep the shelf at the very back, which is supported on this corner, which would be all well and good, but realistically I need to bring that support in anyway to line up with the edge at this end. So I'm kind of at a crossroads of what do I do? Which bits of wood do I cut, given I'm a little bit material limited here, and how am I going to arrange this in a sensible fashion? This almost seems like the perfect piece to use down this side, and I could just cut this completely in half, or even use a couple of other smaller bits of wood, keep this large piece, and I could reuse that maybe at that end. I guess that would work. I do still need a lower shelf as well, which that, I suppose that could drop down. I'm thinking in real time here. About how I'm going to do this. But yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff out, found a few interesting things as well, as I say, including that trolley jack, so completely forgot that that existed. A bunch of other little bits and pieces that I've already forgotten about again. So now I just need to take this shelf out and start thinking about what material I have, as I say, and then we can get on to building this and start repopulating it with stuff. Well, I'm really happy with how this has come together. The axle stands all fit nicely at that end, the drawers work nicely, and I got these two units in. I didn't get much video of actually putting these in. It was getting late and I had to get everything in from outside, and I was just tired and it just needed to be done. And putting these shelves in, you couldn't really see much because I was constantly in the way of the camera trying to get around. You'll have seen one of the clips of video where there's this mysterious hand that comes in from the left side whilst I'm on the other side. It's because I was reaching around the camera to do it, and that just became impractical. So all of this went in. There are still two shelves behind here to put the metal bender on, the ring roller and those roof rails, so they'll sit behind here. So we've not lost any storage that was conveniently hidden, we've gained some, and as much as the axle stands are filling up that, we still have this space down here that the spare, suddenly forgotten about and rediscovered trolley jack is now living in. So that's going to live back in there. Hopefully I can find the handle for it and we can make use of that space for some other things that aren't going to just get shoved all the way to the back and get lost forever. Something that's more accessible. I've got a couple of boxes that will go in there, but there are things in them, so I need to find somewhere else for those to go. And I think I have an idea. If I put them in some smaller boxes, I can fit them in the trolley I was going to put in here with the cupboard on. They can live there in the other trolley with the spanners, the ratchets, the screwdrivers, the pliers, because that's more likely to need to go down the driveway with a selection of sort of maintenance type tools, whereas this stuff is very occasional use. That's a compression tester. No, that's 2 compression testers. This is a soldering iron kit. This is my brake line flaring tool, mostly stuff that I use in this location, and having that mobile just doesn't make any sense. So I'm glad I put it this way around. I also forgot and just autopiloted and put this one in because it was in the way. So everything turned out perfect in that regard. Now, there's obviously a lot more to do. I need to move the mill and the welding bench still, but that requires me to make some more space where that cupboard was, because that's still full of all of those woodworking tools, and I want to put them up in the roof space. The roof space needs to be tidied out and gone through because that's full of just junk that's been thrown up there out of the way for convenience. So that needs to come out, and you're never going to be able to see anything because it's going to be dark. I'm going to be in the way, access is limited, so I'm going to just do that off camera, and we'll come back to the next episode on this when we move the mill and everything else and shuffle that around. There's a couple more bits and pieces I need to work out around some of the tool storage, because the shelf that is currently holding all of the drills, the chucks, not the chucks, the God, I've forgotten what the name of them is, the collets, that's the word I was looking for, holds all the collets, and everything else for the mill is currently supported by a shelf attached to the mill and the wall. So if I move the mill, that shelf's going to come down and it's all going to go wrong. So I need some other means of holding all of those on the other side of the garage next to the mill instead of where it is now, which will also make the boiler easier to service, so that'll be a winner. So yeah, next time it'll be pulling through that end of the garage and fixing that some more and sorting through a bunch more other stuff. When that happens, you will be notified if you subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to help support any of the other projects we're doing, you can do so at patreon.com/pedalboxshow. If you're a patron, you'll also get a discount on the merch shop at shop.pedalbox.show, where you can buy any of our merch like t-shirts, jumpers, beanies, mugs, all sorts of stuff like that. So thanks very much for watching once again, and hopefully we'll see you in the next episode.